What is up, guys? And in this full review, I will be talking about my Nikon Z50 that I have had for roughly 3 months now. And I'm going to tell you whether or not it is one of the most underrated cameras that you should purchase, or it's something that you should just pass along and not really think about. Stay tuned for this video. So if you don't know who I am yet, what up? My name's Peter from Broke Visionary Collective, where I help you create something out of nothing. And you haven't, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell just for the algorithm. And if you haven't watched my other video yet before this video, go watch that one first, where I talk about and compare my Nikon D5200, this lovely fella right here, that I've used for quite some time, and it was finally up to me to decide that I was going to upgrade to a camera. And me wanting to always stick with, Team Nikon, always repping. This is too much. Nikon is known as an underdog within the camera industry, and I think it's been slept on for quite some time. But before I get into my airy-fairy thoughts, I'm gonna give you some tech specs of why I decided to upgrade to my Nikon Z50. If you don't already know, the Nikon Z50 was released in October of 2019. It is a mirrorless APS-C crop sensor. It has a 20.7 megapixel sensor weighing in at 400 grams. It is weather sealed with an X-Speed 6 processor. It has an articulating flip down vlog screen, and you can get it roughly around retail for $800, $1,000 with a kit and dual kit lens combo. And that's the bare specs of the Nikon Z50. And if you compare it to my D5200, one of the reasons why I wanted to get it is because of autofocus capabilities. I was tired of always having to half press the shutter and thinking, am I in focus? And constantly looking at my phone. Now it's like, hey, I am in focus. And you see, there is a depth of field to this. And one of the workarounds behind actually getting the Z50, people are like, hey, the screen flips down, it doesn't flip to the side. Well, just connect to your phone and that kind of solves your problem. It is essentially an external monitor. But I digress. I'm not doing any script for this, and please keep watching. So one of the reasons I decided to upgrade is that, yes, I wanted better autofocus, and I finally wanted to do 4K video, because 4K video is becoming more of the norm. And although I love my D5200 and its capabilities of what you can actually see and use with the DSLR with good lighting and video settings, you'll be surprised at what you can do. I needed that 4K capability so I can punch in and punch out for my videos, have higher quality videos for my clients, as well as have something light and compact. And it made the most sense to upgrade to the Nikon Z50, being that the Z50 is meant to replace all of the D5000 lines. I'm talking about the 5100, 52, 53, 55, 5600, as well as the Nikon 7000 line and the D500. That's a lot of Nikon enthusiast beginner entry level DSLR cameras that this camera is meant to replace. Another reason why I decided to pick up the Nikon Z50 is I wanted to film things in slow motion, because who doesn't like slow motion cinematic looking videos? I wanted to film in 60 frames per second. I wanted to film in 120 frames per second. And you can't do that on a Nikon D5200. And I remember getting the comment, it's like, hey, why didn't you upgrade to the Z5? It's a full frame entry level sensor camera. But one of the reasons for me not picking that camera is that the Z5 is catered more towards photography and having the ability to shoot video as a hybrid shooter camera. And it shoots 4K in cropped in. So I'm already punching in 1.5. So why get a full frame camera if it's punching in 4K? So which is why I decided to get the Nikon Z50. What I really like about this camera is that its autofocus is one of the most underrated autofocus systems in the game. And a lot of these YouTube camera vlogger channels, they talk crap about the Nikon and the Z50, but do you see what I'm seeing? because of Nikon has been so out of the game and not considered within the Sonys, the Canons, the Panasonics, I think Nikon is finally stepping in the right direction. And the way that they see other cameras and competitors, whether they're mistakes, whether they're not doing, they have the time to actually innovate and make the right moves and not go and do something like the Sony and have a bunch of 6,000 cameras like the A6000, the A61, 63, 64, 65, 66, and come out with the A7C. Nikon's taking this time. And like I said, for me, one of the reasons, the biggest pro of using my Nikon Z50 and what I like about it is I decided to get the F to Z mount, right? And F to Z mount allows me to use all of my Nikon lenses right above there. Check out that video where I actually go and test every one of these lenses, and it just made the most financial sense for me as well as this YouTube channel. And I am so used to the Nikon interface as well as its video capabilities. Yes, I'm going to go into the downsides now of using the Nikon Z50. And one of the downsides is that the camera does not have IBIS, right? So all the newer glasses that you're looking for the Z bodies is that, especially the Z50, is that you're relying on VR, what Nikon calls vibration reduction within the lens. So you don't have that dual IS or OS or IBIS or STABE. So you're essentially relying on lens STABE or lens stabilization, which isn't a big deal if you invest in something like a gimbal. But yes, that would be nice to have if the Nikon Z50 had IBIS like the A6600, the Sony A6600. Another downfall of the Nikon Z50 is that although the autofocus is really damn good, compared to if you especially upgraded from the Nikon D50-200, you're like, wow, I can finally do autofocus, man, with this lens. That's amazing. Another thing is that in low light, it does not do that well. So right now, I want to see. Can it detect my face, right? So because that it is a crop sensor, it has a hard time, just with anything, in low light. And it's going to affect noise as well as autofocus. So as long as you are well lit and there's light, the Z50 will be able to tell, like, hey, you have face detection. And that's another pro of using this camera, is that it has all the video features that you would want for video, right? It has focus peaking, it has levelers, it has a histogram. The only thing it doesn't have is for video is a headphone jack. I wish it had it, but you know, it's not the end of the world, and there's always workarounds for that. So when it comes to shooting primarily video, and I am looking into doing more photography with this camera, check out my Broke on a Budget series where I actually do photos with one lens, one camera. The photos are pretty sharp. I don't see any chromatic aberrations with the kit lenses. Everything looks tack sharp. I don't see any issues with the photos. When it comes to video, I have yet to have a full in-depth videos and film with it, but I have filmed a couple of client projects for this, as I filmed in a neutral profile, and I'm slowly transitioning to using only a flat picture profile. For the most part, it looks good. I would adjust the contrast in the slow motion because the slow motion looks a little soft, so I would up the contrast when I shoot in 120 frames, 60 frames per second. For the most part, 4K looks fine with a flat picture profile. I color graded. It looks pretty decent to me. And that's the pros, a little bit of the pros, a little bit of the cons. If I had to compare this guy to, let's say, a good competitor would be in 2021 and moving forward, would probably be something along the lines of the Nikon, not the Nikon, the Sony A6600, which is an APS-C, mirrorless, shoots 4K, 120 frames, has IBIS as well as a headphone jack. But the downsides of that is that you can buy two of these guys for one of the A6600, and I think for under $1,000 and the price point of where this camera is at, what you're getting is one of the most underrated vlogging cameras that I think, in my opinion. You're not going to get something for this price point with these features. So when this camera is compared next to the Sony a6500, the 6600, you're looking at the Fujifilms. Consider the price point of these cameras and looking what this can actually do. And this is one of my full-fledged honest reviews of why I actually really enjoy using the Nikon Z50. I have not had any issues with it so far. There are a couple of things that I wish it was improved, like battery life. I wish they maybe even stuck around and still used the EL14A batteries. The batteries on the Nikon Z50 don't actually last as long in comparison to my Nikon D5200. As well as, since this camera is newer, there's harder to find OEM batteries for it. Another thing is, because of the camera body size and to have it compact, the SD card is actually on the bottom. I wish it was on the side, but that's not a deal breaker for me. A little annoying, but it does the job. And for the most part, if you're looking for a camera that has good dynamic range, good ISO exposure compensation, if you're shooting on full manual, I've seen reviews on this that are also doing it myself. Nikon, when it comes to exposing and putting this camera on fully auto and vlogging with it, and with its, as long as you're in good lit environments, this has really good autofocus, and it would be a pretty damn good investment for a vlogging camera. I think this is one of the most slept on cameras, especially if decide this really great B cam, really even a better vlogging camera in my opinion. And because Nikon decided to have, doesn't matter if it's crop or full frame, all the lenses are the same mounts. They're the Z mounts. So I can invest in a 35 1.8S lens, pop this on, and if I decide to in the future upgrade to a Nikon Z7, Z6 Mark II, I can use that same lens, right? Where if you're in Sony, you can't really do that. So that was my little spiel, my little runoff of what I like about the Nikon Z50, what I don't like. And do I recommend it for you? Yes, if you already have existing Nikon, it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense that you already are invested into the lineup. You have all the lenses and you're within a budget and you still want to make every bang for its buck under $1,000. And if you have $2,000 plus, this is probably not the camera for you. But if you want to stay under $1,000, this is one of the most slept on cameras. I think it does better than, let's say, within the price point of like an M50. You take a Canon M50 Mark II versus the Nikon Z50, I would take the Nikon Z50. Argue me on that, let me know in the comments. But this was my only off spiel when it comes to talking about the Nikon Z50. I really love this camera so far. It's a huge upgrade. If you have a Nikon 5000 line, 51, 52, 53, 55, 5600, and you're looking to upgrade, this is the camera for you. This is the camera. You have more mode dials, you have more custom functions, you have 4K video capabilities. And if you're just saving up for a camera and you're like, should I still stay in the Nikon ecosystem? Hell yes, you should with the Nikon Z50. And if you need help on learning how to use cameras or taking your video from looking to damn, that's pretty good, enroll in my course, link in the description. Get my complete mastery camera guide, link in the description below. And if you want some free things, get my free camera guide that will help you beginner to complete advanced expert. Link in the description. Get all my freebies. My name is Peter. You're watching Broke Vision Collective. Christmas, New Year's just around the corner. This is a good time to invest in gear as things will be on sale. And I hope everyone's having a good time in the year, although it's a scary time in these unprecedented times. How many times can you hear that said on every news media outlet? And now is the time to start creating your personal brand. Now is the time to start creating for you, right? I'm not trying to get all hippie and motivational here, you know, but my name is Peter. You're watching a Broke Visionary Collective 2021. I got some cool things up in my mind. And we all start with nothing. But you can always create something.